Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Terrible hat hair, so just rolling with it. But how's the chat doing today? Haven't actually really checked in on the chat. I feel like I'm always like running around before and after the show. My kids are always running in and like ending the show abruptly. Candy B1, Gordon Tim Pool. Yeah, I'm doing my Tim Pool impression today. God, Tim Pool, what a clown Tim Pool is. A lot of clowns right now. I was just on like a Zoom call, I guess you'd call it, with CanCon and Ash, doing some prep work with them on their they have a really big interview coming up tonight with Patrick Byrne on Venezuela. So I was just assisting with them, providing intel to them as much as I could. But man, we were just talking about how like everything's so clownish. Everyone is acting like a clown right now. Just everyone out there. And it's probably a sign of things that are coming, but everyone just triggered. Everyone's angry. Everyone is at the end of their rope. A lot of it's probably earnest, but a lot of it's also probably like panic. I do think it's becoming easier to like identify who the bad actors are because of the way they respond to stories and the way they talk about stuff. They kind of self-identify at this point almost, and it's really nice. It's very convenient. And I'm all for it. I'm all about it. So welcome everybody. And welcome. Happy Friday. It is a snow day here. We got like, I don't know how many inches we got. 4 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches in Virginia, which is a lot for Virginia. It'll all be melted probably by Sunday. So, they like canceled school yesterday before like 15 hours before it even started snowing. Because they just get terrified of that kind of weather here. We aren't like equipped for it. So anyway, let's jump into the news. I was already kind of planning on using that song. I can't believe they made that song. Like, do they even know it's Christmas in Africa because there's no snow and it's They're so stupid in Africa, right? How are they not accused of being like total racists back in the 80s for making that? I don't know, but it's obviously become like a very basic bitch song, and it's relevant because we have snow here at my house today, and we also have an Africa story, which I wasn't even thinking about when I picked the song, but it just kind of serendipity, right? So we're going to start with that story just to make the musical selection make sense. So here's the archived version of the Reuters article. Congo, Rwanda leaders affirm commitment to Trump-backed peace deal. U.S. President Donald Trump gathered the leaders of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda to sign a peace deal in Washington on Thursday, even as fighting continued in their war-scarred region. Rwandan President Paul Kagame and Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi, and I can't say his name now. Very proud of that. I love saying Felix Tshisekedi's name because I used to have to call him Mr. T or Felix, which is a little disrespectful, but now I can call him President Tshisekedi. And it's only because I heard the Trump aides in the White House say his name. So all I need is just to hear somebody else say the word, and then I can mimic it like a parrot. They were also due to, so it says Tshisekedi affirmed commitments to an economic integration compact agreed last month and to a U.S. brokered peace deal reached in June. They were also due to sign an agreement on critical minerals. The signing handed Trump the latest in a series of made-for-television diplomatic victories. In this case, one at odds with the bloody situation on the ground. Washington wants access to a spectrum of natural resources in Congo and is scrambling globally to counter China's dominance in critical minerals. Quote, "We're settling a war that's been going on for decades," Trump said. They spend a lot of time killing each other, and now they're going to spend a lot of time hugging, holding hands, and taking advantage of the United States of America economically, like every other country does. Setting before a delivery peace backdrop at a peace institute that his administration unofficially renamed after Trump, the African leaders signed and exchanged documents with the U.S. president. Quote, "Thank you for putting a certain name on that building," Trump told Secretary of State Marco Rubio, adding that it was a great honor. All the leaders signed. Clashes between Rwanda-backed M23 rebels and the Congolese army were reported throughout South Kivu province, or as the leaders signed. Clashes were reported. The spokesman for M23 accused government troops of bombing several civilian areas. M23 seized the two largest cities in eastern Congo earlier this year, raising fears of a wider war. Analysts say U.S. diplomacy has paused the escalation of fighting, but has failed to resolve core issues. A White House official said the deal signing, quote, "recommits the parties to this peace process and reflected months of intensive diplomacy led by President Trump, who made it clear to both the DRC and Rwanda that the status quo was unacceptable." The Republican U.S. president has been eager to burnish his diplomatic credentials since his return to office in January. Trump has intervened in conflicts from the Middle East to Ukraine and beyond. He's also presided over splashy deal signing ceremonies from Kuala Lumpur to Sharm el-Sheikh. Kuala Lumpur would be, of course, Malaysia, and Sharm el-Sheikh would be Egypt. Those efforts have brought mixed results. A long sought Gaza deal, but also criticism of that he should focus on domestic cost of living concerns instead. Voters give Trump low marks on his handling of the economy. All right, so all of this stuff is connected, and that's what's really important to get to. There's some more information here that I want to go over down here in this article, but before we do, we'll look at some videos because we have some videos of the event. So here, let's pull up a few of those videos. So here's the actual video of them signing the deal. You have, oh God, I hope my computer doesn't crash. My computer's been acting a little being a little clunky lately. My computer's been a little clunky lately, so I'm hoping that and sometimes it'll just like crash over the past few days. And I have a lot of tabs open right now, so we'll see that that doesn't happen. We put the comments on screen so y'all can hang out. Okay, so on screen you can see on the left is Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, and on the right is Felix Tshisekedi, the president of the DR Congo. And every time we talk about this story, I always rehash, like I run through the whole spiel, the whole rant. There might be new people here, so I kind of want to honor the story, but I don't want to spend too much time repeating things that a lot of you've already heard. But this goes back way further than this past year. This goes back to Trump's first presidency, to Executive Order 13818 from December 20th of 2017. And all these conflicts around the world, by the way, have one thing in common, and that is Israel. Israel is connected to all this stuff, whether it's providing the arms, the IDF providing the arms to the rebels who are doing the fighting, or it is an economic interest. Israel is involved in all this stuff. Venezuela, Ukraine, the DR Congo. I'm sure they're probably somehow involved in the Cambodia, Thailand situation. I've seen some posts from people about Cambodia. Haven't done the full dive on that, but I would not surprise me to find out that their involvement is there. They certainly are providing the weapons. The weapons were provided to the Thai rebels that went into Cambodia. They were fighting with Israeli-made weapons. So how does this tie back into the economy? Well, this ties back into the economy because Rwanda and Congo straddle a line that is extremely important to first world commerce. And let me just pull up the map and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so here is the DR Congo, right? We're in the middle of Africa. Africa is huge, by the way. You can fit Russia, China, the continental United States, all of Europe, I think maybe even Canada. All of that can geographically fit in Africa. It doesn't look like it when you look at the world map because everything gets stretched out when you take the longitudinal lines and lay them out flat. Like Russia looks huge, Canada looks huge, the United States looks huge. They're much smaller than they actually look on the map. But yeah, I mean, Russia, you can fit inside of Africa with all the other countries. China, the US, Europe. DRC is almost the size of the continental United States. It's huge. Here's the area we're talking about. So you have North Kivu and South Kivu. So North Kivu is this province right here. You see the dotted line? You have this North Kivu province, and then you have the South Kivu province, which is this dotted line. The conflict is really technically in the South Kivu province because Goma is like right here. It straddles the South Kivu, North Kivu line. It also straddles the DR Congo, Rwanda border, as does Bukavu. These are the two cities that the M23 rebels have taken control of. Now, the reason that they have taken control of these two cities specifically is because you have a huge mineral belt. You have an enormous copper belt that runs down here, I think around like Kamina, and you also have other rare earth mineral belts, and I think cobalt. Coltan is a big one. This is a mineral that I only learned about in the past year, but coltan is like one of the most important minerals that nobody ever talks about when it comes to producing computer chips, computers, cell phones, laptops, any of these the high tech gadgets and devices, missile GPS systems, like all that stuff. You need this metal called coltan, and I believe it's 75% of the world supply of coltan comes from South Kivu, from this province right here. All of the minerals together, the copper, the tin is another really big one. I think technically coltan, if I'm not mistaken, is like under the tin family or whatever, or tin adjacent. But you have tin, you have copper, you have gold, you have diamonds. You have like these rare earth metals that are used in the production, like manufacturing. All together, this province, like this eastern like border of the DR Congo is worth over $24 trillion. And up until December 20th, 2017, basically all of those minerals were owned by a monopoly, and that monopoly was run by Israeli diamond cartel scion, meaning the inheritor to the Israeli diamond cartel, diamond mafia, Dan Gertler. And Gertler, of course, is one of like the first really big digs I went on in early 2014 or early 2024, rather, excuse me, that connected all this stuff to Glencore and these large commodity asset trading companies, which of course is all connected to Venezuela. And it's like, that's how Venezuela connects to this story. Venezuela and this story are very deeply connected because of these companies right here. These three companies: Glencore, Trafigura, Vital. You could also throw Helsinki in there as well. There are a few others, but those are the three big ones. Glencore is the biggest one. And that's because this guy, Dan Gertler, basically spent the late 90s and early 2000s establishing mineral rights that his father and grandfather had set up decades before in Africa. If you've ever seen the movie Blood Diamond, that takes place in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone, just to provide some context. And computer's running a little slow here. Hope it's not going to be an issue. Here's Sierra Leone. So here's DRC. Sierra Leone is like 2,000 miles away. It's, a continent away. But that's where the movie Blood Diamond takes place. All of the events in that movie that are based on true events. That whole system that you're witnessing in the movie, where the children are being taken from their parents and forced to fight in these militias, forced to work in gold mines, all that stuff. The family that runs that system is Dan Gertler's family. His grandfather set it up. Okay. And all across the African continent, you have gold mines, you have tin mines, you have copper mines, and all of these mineral rights, many of them were consolidated under the control of what is now known as the Israel Diamond Exchange. It's the largest diamond exchange in the world. It's one of Israel's top industries, despite the fact that Israel has no diamonds in its borders. It is like the largest trader of diamonds in the world, and it's also like their biggest economic sector are diamonds and high tech, like software technologies. Big pharma, I think, comes in at number 3. And it's because they own all of the mineral rights to these diamond mines around the world, primarily in Africa. So they control all. The reason Africa is a dumpster fire is because of the Israeli diamond cartel and them making sure what they don't want to happen. They haven't wanted to happen for many, many years. They don't want any of these countries to become sovereign. They don't want them to become self-governing, self-interested, capable of throwing off the shackles of imperialists who own all of their natural resources, because obviously they're going to take those natural resources away from this mafia. And that's exactly what's happened in the DR Congo. When Trump issued Executive Order 13818 on December 20th, we'll go back to the mind map. Here it is. Number 3 on the annex, Dan Gertler. People cite this thing all the time. People are like, Executive Order 13818, 13 names. That's it. And then they added more names, like over the years, they've added more people to this list. But 13 names. That's it. If your name's on the list, then you're not being targeted by Executive Order 13818. Maybe there's something happening in secret, but we don't know about that. And you can't just presume that stuff's happening. That's a little dangerous. But Dan Gertler was one of the people that were targeted. Here he is right here. He has dual citizenship with Israel and the DR Congo. And so what Dan Gertler was doing is, around the time of the events of Blood Diamond, he, Paul Kagame, this would have been like the mid to late 90s. That's when that movie takes place. Paul Kagame is a soldier in the Rwandan army. He's an officer. He leads a militia force into a conflict between, what is it? Is it the Houthis and it's the Bindus and the Tutus? whatever those two tribes are called. The exact name escapes me, and forgive me for that. The Rwandan genocide is what the event is, and that's when one tribe comes in and slaughters a bunch of people in the other tribe. These are, warring tribes that have a history, and then Paul Kagame comes in on behalf of the tribe that gets slaughtered and defeats the other tribe, and basically establishes becomes the president of Rwanda through a military coup. He's backed by the CIA. He's backed by the State Department. He's backed by Mossad. He's painted as this hero of Africa, and he's been in power for the past 30 years. One of the things he does, this is Kagame, he installs next door, because remember, we're talking about Rwanda and the DRC being side by side. Rwanda is this tiny little country right here. Let's go back to the map. This tiny little country right here. He installs next door. Look how small Rwanda is. Okay, it doesn't have. I think its number one export is agriculture. So despite its really small size, the number one thing they produce is like food, basically. They don't have rare earth minerals. They don't have resources, that kind of stuff. The leader of this country in 2000, I think it's either 2000 or 2001, installs one of his people, one of his lieutenants or whatever, a guy named Lawrence Kabila, as the president of the DR Congo. And so Lawrence Kabila then becomes the leader of the Congo. He is assassinated about 1 year into his presidency in 2001. And then his son, Joseph Kabila, takes over and is president for 16 years until 2018. 16, 17 years he's president. During that time, from 2001 until 2018, when he is forced out of office, he establishes a very close relationship with Dan Gertler, and it's reported in 2022 by a group of journalists, real journalists who were doing actual investigative reporting, that Dan Gertler, this is all revealed through the Paradise Paper leaks. The journalists then take the little breadcrumbs from the Paradise Papers and other disclosures and piece together the fact that Dan Gertler paid in total at least $360 million. This is 2021. This is being reported. I'm sorry, not 2022. 2021, it's being reported that Dan Gertler pays this guy, Joseph Kabila, $360 million and in exchange basically gets a monopoly. He gets rights to all of these minerals in the eastern part of DR Congo. And these are all owned by different subsidiaries, by different mining companies, but all these mining companies ultimately fall under an umbrella that is either Dan Gertler or Glencore, because in 2007, Dan Gertler overextends himself. The economy crashes. He almost goes bankrupt. He goes to Glencore and he says, Glencore, I need your help. And Glencore injects $45 million into his operation. They get ownership stake in his operation. They become his partner, right? And they own their own mining companies, of course. And they have, interest now, skin in the game before and after. And then Gertler and Glencore are exposed in the Paradise Paper leaks, but they're also targeted. Gertler's targeted in Executive Order 13818. Now, from Executive Order 13818, the only thing that happens is his assets are frozen. So his assets are not seized. Everyone thinks that it's a seizing mechanism. It's only a freezing mechanism. And then all that means is that you log into your bank account's frozen. You can't move money around. You can't do anything. So your business is frozen, right? They've lawfare is then conducted against Gertler, primarily in British court, as I understand it. I think it was all done in British courts to strip away these mineral rights from all these different companies. And this is a process that plays out over many, many years. You get cases in 2021, cases in 2022, cases in 2023. I think there are some cases in 2024. And I think there's still some cases going on now because it's all these different companies that own these rights, and each one has to be adjudicated, basically. And as these rights are being taken, these mineral rights, these licenses are being taken away, they're then being put up for auction or they're being renegotiated by the DR Congo government. In 2017, when this is all exposed, like the Paradise Papers are leaked, and that makes it very clear that Kabila has been paid off, that Kabila is in the back pocket of Dan Gertler. Kabila is not able to run. Like, he's forced basically not to run for office in 2018. And in 2018, he doesn't run. Tshisekedi runs and becomes president. And actually, in the past 8 months, I think, maybe 3 or 4 months, Kabila has been charged with treason. He's been accused of trying to orchestrate a number of coups against the Tshisekedi government. And I think he's been convicted now in absentia, meaning he's not living in the DR Congo, but he was convicted remotely of treason, of trying to overthrow the government. Now, as these mineral rights are being stripped away over the past 5 years, the people coming in and buying those mineral rights, of course, are the Saudis, the Qataris, and the Emiratis. Here are the articles that I can point to. Here's an article from April of 2024, how Gulf states are putting their money into mining. Hungry to diversify their economies beyond fossil fuels, Middle East powers are investing in the resources needed to produce clean energy. Okay, and then here's a little map that shows you DP World is a development company from the UAE, and it's a company, by the way, that's working with the Trump corporation on, the Trump corporation on building the Trump Tower that they're going to build in the UAE. And here's a map that shows all of their ports that are either already operating, those are the pink ones, or blue ones that are under, I'm sorry, the blue are DP World and the pink are AD ports. So both of those, I believe, are UAE companies, and you can see where they are. They're in Angola, they're in DR Congo, they're in Congo, which is a different country. They're in Rwanda, Kigali. They're up in Somalia. They're in Djibouti. They're on the western coast in Senegal of Africa. Now, why would they be? Now, it makes sense for these places to be on the coast, but why would they be all the way here in the middle of Kigali? Well, that actually is an interesting observation and an interesting story. The reason that they would be in Rwanda is because for the past 30 years, even like despite this relationship between Dan Gertler and Joseph Kabila, they still are using child slave. Dan Gertler, the reason his assets get frozen is because he's accused of using child slaves, right? But there are also these groups, rights groups, that have eyes on all over the place. Public awareness is coming to fruition. Like that movie Blood Diamond comes out. They're aware, the public is becoming aware of the child slavery in the human slavery system in Africa. And so they start laundering the minerals out of the DR Congo into Rwanda, and then cleaning them by giving each of these mineral certificates, kind of like the Tiffany process for diamonds, certificates that say these were mined responsibly. They came from, this mine and this mining company, and this mining company, of course, doesn't use any child slaves. So what that certificate means is that these minerals can be sold to the largest and most powerful corporations, the corporations that need to save face in the public square, like, Sony, Apple, Raytheon, you name it, any company from the Fortune 500 company. Most of them are purchasing that need these rare earth minerals, the raw minerals, to manufacture their goods. They're getting them through Rwanda, even though Rwanda doesn't have any mines. And it's because these are laundered minerals that are given fake certificates. They're mined by children, mined by slaves, and then the certificates are given to them in Rwanda. The certificates are given to them, by the way, by the regulatory bodies that were created to like stop this from happening. So that just goes to show you how corrupt the whole thing is. The regulatory bodies that are created to prevent child slave trafficking are the ones that are giving certificates to these these minerals so they can be legally sold to Apple and Sony and whoever else. And to demonstrate all of that, I have article about Europe investigating Apple. Yeah, so I have an article here, a PDF that shows you this. And we covered this in the news brief back in January, but here it is. Belgium to investigate Apple's alleged use of Congolese blood minerals. So it says Belgium has launched an investigation into allegations that U.S. technology giant Apple sourced blood minerals from the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Financial Times writes, according to lawyers representing the DRC, Belgium appointed an investigating judge last week. In December, lawyers representing the DRC filed complaints against Apple subsidiaries in Belgium and France. The African country accuses the company of buying blood minerals, also known as 3TG minerals, such as tantalum, tin, and gold, from illegal mines linked to the war in eastern Congo, child labor, and environmental degradation. Apple says it verifies the origin of the minerals it sources, which are labeled as coming from non-conflict areas or Rwanda. However, DRC believes these minerals come from illegal mines in eastern Congo and are laundered to become part of the legal supply chain. M23 rebels. Many of these illegal mines are under the control of the M23 rebels, a UN report revealed this month. The movement, which the UN and EU say is backed by the Rwandan government, illegally taxes mining operations and exports minerals, contaminating the global supply chain in the process. It isn't just Apple. This is a quote. It isn't just Apple, but the EU itself that is engaged in this sophistry. The DRC's lawyers believe that Apple knowingly sourced minerals from these mines. The company has consistently denied these allegations. However, in December, it told suppliers to stop sourcing 3TG minerals from both the DRC and Rwanda, citing concerns that independent auditors or industry certification mechanisms can no longer perform the due diligence required to meet our high standards. No, the reason they said that was because these lawyers were sniffing around, and these lawyers actually put together a very impressive PDF, which I might be able to find. I thought I had that saved. I think this is actually it right here. They had a really nice PDF, and I think this is actually it. Yep, here it is. Oh, you're kidding me. What? 404. Yeah, so Amsterdam and Partners is the law firm. Let me see if I can find the PDF, because the link I have is dead. Here it is. So this isn't the actual PDF, but anyway, they had a PDF that had pictures and stuff on it, but that's fine. Here's just the actual write-up. But the headline here, this is from December 17th, 2024. Apple hit with criminal complaints in France and Belgium over blood minerals in supply chain. So they're being like investigated by these authorities by these lawyers in Europe, while also doing business with the EU. So there's a good twin, evil twin element in Europe that is both working with these criminals, but then also going after these criminals. And let's see. Here's another article about this from the Black Agenda report from January 15th, 2025. And it says, it says the Washington, D.C. based law firm was retained by DRC's government late last year to investigate supply chains for illegally extracted and siphoned minerals from the Congo. They're referring to like the end of 2024, which is, again, they're like reaching out to Apple and saying, hey, Apple, we're sniffing around, like just letting you know. That's why Apple came out and said, hey, stop sourcing from Congo and Rwanda, because we're going to get caught if we keep doing that. It says of the 32, let's see. illegally extracted and siphoned materials from Congo, especially the 3T, tin, tungsten, and tantalum, are critical for electronics, automotive, and aerospace technologies. Coltan is another one that I mentioned. Of the 32 smelters and refineries listed by Apple as its suppliers of tantalum in its report to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, for 2023, at least 9 sourced the mineral from Rwanda, but Rwanda's production of key 3T minerals is near zero, the law firm said in a report it published in April 2024 titled Blood Minerals, the Laundering of DRC's 3T Minerals by Rwanda. Let's see. And so there's that. Okay. And so tantalum is a rare earth mineral extracted from coltan. So there's the coltan. 64% of whose global deposits is in the DRC. So 64% of tantalum in the world is found in this little small part of the DR Congo. And yet it is critical to all electronic manufacturing. That's why this is so important. Most of it is concentrated in Rubaya, a mining town in North Kivu province, which produces over 15% of the global supply of tantalum. So one mining town in the North Kivu province, which if we go back to the map, and the reason we spend so much time on like one little story here is because I'd rather y'all walk away with a deeper understanding of why something is happening than just being able to like memorize a bunch of headlines. But y'all already know that. So again, here's North Kivu. North Kivu is this region right here, north of Goma. And Rubaya is, let's see where Rubaya is. Rubaya is right there. So there's Rubaya. So they're saying that 15% of the entire world supply of tantalum comes from this one small town in Africa. Okay. Now, so why did the M23 rebels take over these two cities? The reason is because you have these small little mining towns are all over this part of Africa. Some of these mines, like I've looked into the reports, I've looked at like how many people work at one mine. Some mines you have 300 people working there. Some mines, they're called artisan mines, you have 3 people working there, right? And so rather than going around and trying to control each and every single little mining operation, it's much easier to just go to the industrial centers where all of these, like, you know, you go and you mine the minerals, like the rock, the ore is put in trucks. The trucks are driven to the industrial centers, and then the ore is refined into the metal. Like they take out the useless rock, the bad rock, and then they send out the metal. If you control the refineries, then you don't have to control the mines because you're going to control the ore when it comes to the refineries. That's why Goma and Bukavu, where all the refineries are, were targeted by M23. Now, what M23 is doing is they're taking the ore that is coming in and they're walking it back into Rwanda, and then from Rwanda they're slapping that certificate on it and shipping it out. Okay, they're laundering the minerals to make sure that they can be sold. Now, there's 2 reasons for doing this. My guess, I mean, I don't know all of the facets of this, but one is, of course, like the certification process, right? The other is because there is a very contemptuous relationship between Dan Gertler and the Israeli oligarchy and President Felix Tshisekedi and the DRC. They do not get along with Israel. Right now, DRC and Israel or specifically the Netanyahu regime, are not friends. Rwanda, however, is very much friends with Israel. Paul Kagame is a hardcore Zionist. He loves Israel. He appears on stage with all the Israeli Zionist figures all the time, talks about how great Israel is. So Rwanda has a great relationship with Israel, and that's why these metals are coming out of Rwanda as opposed to DRC, because now the Israeli diamond cartel has lost its mineral rights in Congo, but it maintains rights in Rwanda, even though, as the report says, Rwanda doesn't produce any of this stuff. However, it somehow is able to source these materials and sell it to Apple. Okay. Now, going back to Why is there a bad relationship between the DRC and the Israeli oligarchy? Well, it's because in 2022, here's 2022, May 2022, the Mossad chief, this guy, Yossi Cohen, is caught sneaking around 3 times in 1 year. He's caught sneaking around the DRC. This is 2019. So it's been reported in 2022 by the same investigative journalists who exposed the other stuff the year before. They learned that Cohen, who is the director of Mossad at the time, and Dan Gertler went to the DRC at least once together, and then Yossi Cohen went back 2 more times that year. Never contacted the government, didn't tell them they were coming, which is a total, like, violates procedure. If you are a dignitary, like you work for a government, especially if you're the director of Mossad or a diplomat, and you go to a foreign country, you call their foreign office and you say, hey, I'm just letting you know we're coming to visit. I'm going on personal business. I'm going to see a friend, whatever, but I'm going to be in your country. So when the media reports on it, you're not getting blindsided. They didn't do that. And the third time I think he showed up, the authorities were waiting for them on the tarmac and basically they didn't arrest him, but they turned his plane around and flew it back home and then banned him for life. Yossi Cohen is not allowed to ever go back to the DR Congo. He, as a result of this scandal, he was forced to resign as the Mossad chief, as the director of Mossad in 2022. There's also, I think the second time he came, it was either the second or the third time, October 10th, if I'm not mistaken, 2019. That day that he flies into an airport, right? This is Yossi Cohen. And that same day, this guy, Felix Tshisekedi, is flying out of that airport on 2 different planes. You know, he's on one plane and his, people from his staff or whatever are on the second plane. The plane he's not on blows up on the runway. Fortunately, he wasn't on it. And I think that's part of the reason they fly in like 2 planes is, it's like a shell game. But fortunately, he's not killed. But I think Mossad was trying to kill him. I think that, and by the way, in this story, in this article, Tshisekedi's own staff say that they accused Cohen. They're like, we think he was there to organize a coup. And then, of course, we get multiple coup attempts. Here's May of 2024, Christian Malanga, American Congolese mercenary, killed in action trying to overthrow the Congolese government. His son, Marcel, Marcel, 21, is arrested along with 37 other operators. Three of them, I think, are American. Here they are being arrested in a failed coup. Here's Christian Malanga, the father, hanging out in the West Bank with the IDF because he's friends with Yossi Cohen and Netanyahu and all those guys. So who do you think sent Christian Malanga and paid for him? Who do you think gave him the bag of gold and said, go overthrow that government? I'm willing to bet it was Yossi Cohen and Netanyahu. And just to bring everything full circle, Yossi Cohen was the political heir apparent to Bibi Netanyahu. There's actually speculation now that he's been out of the public eye for a couple of years, that he's going to come back and run for prime minister after Netanyahu formally retires. That's the speculation right now. But he's not going to do it until Netanyahu's done. When Moshe Schnitzer, the guy who I mentioned, who was the founder of the Israeli Diamond Exchange, his grandson, of course, is Dan Gertler. When he dies, I think it was 2009, Netanyahu is the one who gives the eulogy at his funeral. So obviously these two are pretty good friends. And obviously these two are pretty good friends. And I think it's fair to assume, since Dan Gertler and Yossi Cohen were caught together sneaking around the DRC in 2019, it's fair to assume that Dan Gertler and Netanyahu are also friends. Okay, so this is all one big club. You're not in it. I'm not in it. There's probably plenty of Jewish people who aren't in it. This is like a Jewish mafia, basically. And they lost control of $24 trillion worth of rare earth minerals that are absolutely critical to produce high technologies like laptops, cell phones, and missile GPS chips, right? Anything that requires, electronics requires these metals, and they lost control of it. So let's go back to what is happening this week then, because you have these two signing this deal. while they're signing this deal, both of their governments are accusing the other one of violating the ceasefire that they signed in June. You have the Congolese military accusing the M23 of attacking them. You have M23 accusing the Congolese military of attacking them. Now, M23 is not the Rwandan government. M23 is a militia that operates as a proxy to the Rwandan government and has been for the past, 30 years. There's actually articles of Condoleezza Rice under George Bush dealing with this exact same problem like 20 some years ago, like where I think the article was written in 2012, but it was reflecting back on the Bush years. And it's talking about M23. It's talking about Rwanda. It's talking about the DRC, Eastern DRC. It's talking about Joseph Kabila. I mean, it's all the same players. It's basically the exact same story, just slightly different. There's no, I don't think there's any earnest white hats acting in that iteration of the story. But then you have this. You have this. Okay, so this is an interesting comment here from Trump. So point is that M23 and the Congolese military are still fighting right now as they sign this. But what's interesting is that when you read the fine print, and this is being reported, included in the media, M23 is not a party to this deal. So technically, legally they exist outside of this deal. The deal doesn't, like the peace deal, does not apply to them. That's the legal argument, I think, for what's happening, is that technically they're not even a party to this. So which is of course the benefit of using a proxy militia to overthrow a foreign government. So here's Trump being asked about a random question about Canada while this is all happening.
Why not? Why not Canada, by the way?
Why? I mean, because this is about a different subject right now. This is right now actually a much more important subject. We just ended a war that was going on for 30 years where 6 million people died. So don't ask me a trade question on Canada.
6 million people. Interesting. Yeah, and so he says they ended a war. Did they actually end the war? I'm not so sure. This is an interesting clip though from their press conference.
So today, the United States is also signing our own bilateral agreements with the Congo and Rwanda that will unlock new opportunities for the United States to access critical minerals and provide economic benefits for everybody. And we'll be involved. We're sending some of our biggest and greatest companies over to the two countries. And we're going to take out some of the rare earth and take out some of the assets and pay, and everybody's going to make a lot of money. Today, the United States is also signing.
This is interesting because we're gonna send our companies there, and when our companies go there, when these companies that I'm sure Trump is planning on bringing in go there, we've already seen evidence. The Arabs have already talked about how they're cleaning that stuff up. They want to make money doing this, and they want to do it all legitimately. They don't want to mess around with trafficking of kids or slavery or any of that stuff. So they've already made efforts to clean up what they can control, buying up these companies that were owned by Dan Gertler, that were owned by Glencore. Now Trump is talking about bringing in more companies, and the more competition and the more of a marketplace you create in this part of the world, that's how you're going to get rid of this dark stuff. That's how you're going to get rid of, it's when you have a monopoly, when you only have one player in the game, that's when you're going to get the totalitarianism. That's when you're going to get, the bad stuff. I also thought it was worth pointing out. I mean, like when you're looking at this clip, look at the flags in the background. You see this, you see these flags? This flag is the Rwandan flag. I'll pull it up here so you can see it. I just think it's interesting. Like the blue, yellow, I mean, it has green on it, but Ukrainian colors, and I don't know if you know the origin of the Ukrainian flag, but here is the Rothschild's coat of arms. the Rothschilds, I mean, Rothschild means red shield. That's where their name comes from. They adopted the name in the 1700s. They had a different name before that. Their official colors, like you see the red shield in the middle, their official colors are yellow and blue. Like that, those are the formal colors of the Rothschild family, are yellow and blue. And it's the exact same yellow and blue that you find on the Ukrainian flag. I just always found that interesting. And I think that there's definitely a connection between the Rothschild family crest and the Ukrainian flag. And the fact that the Rwandan flag has, similar color scheme. It's not the exact same, but I think that's interesting. And then there was another clip that I wanted to play. So Trump is kind of asserting himself here. He's saying that we're going to go bring these companies to the DRC and we're going to start imposing ourselves on it. And, the conflict is the conflict, but it's going to be harder and harder for the bad actors around the world to continue their malfeasance when everybody else starts like being peaceful and starts like just earnestly pursuing peace. It's going to become very obvious who the bad actors are. And that's what's happening right now. You're watching it happen in real time. Venezuela is a perfect example of that. I think you're going to see that here in a minute. And that last, I don't even know if we need to watch the last video I had, but well, it's commentary from Paul Kagame. So let's just listen to what Paul Kagame has to say, because I view Paul Kagame as like the black hat puppet in this situation. Okay, so let's listen to what he says. That I may or may not be accurate there, but that's just what I think. That's my conclusion.
Vote of thanks goes to President Donald Trump. No one was asking President Trump to take up this task. Our region is far from the headlines. But when the president saw the opportunity to contribute to peace, he immediately took it. This conflict has lasted for 30 years. We have seen countless mediations and efforts, but none has succeeded in resolving the underlying issues. President Trump introduced a new and effective dynamism that created the space for breakthroughs. His approach is even-handed, never taking sides. He orients us toward the future, not the past, emphasizing that the dividend of peace is prosperity and investment, including from the United States. More importantly, President Trump's approach is pragmatic. The process has not become an end in itself. All of these elements filter down to his dedicated team, and here I want to single out Secretary Rubio and Mossad.
Okay, so I was trying to buy a little bit of time because okay, I wanted to buy a little bit. I was trying to buy a few minutes because I have there's a new connection to this situation. We have So here's from Minnesota taxpayer dollars funneled to Al-Shabaab terror group report alleges Ryan Thorpe and Christopher F. Rufo uncovered a web of fraud schemes that funneled funds to Al-Shabaab. A new investigation found that Minnesota taxpayer dollars were going far beyond the North Star state's borders and ending up in the hands of Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda-linked terror group. Ryan Thorpe and Christopher F. Rufo of the Manhattan Institute uncovered a web of fraud involving Minnesota's Medicare or Medicaid Housing Stabilization Services program, Feeding Our Future, and other organizations. In a bombshell report, Thorpe and Rufo noted that in many cases, members of Minnesota's Somali community were perpetrators of fraud. They added that federal counterterrorism sources confirmed that millions of dollars in stolen funds were sent back to Somalia, which is how Al-Shabaab got the cash. Thorpe and Rufo sought to answer a bigger question when looking into the schemes. Where did the money go? As it turned out, the Somali fraud rings sent money transfers from Minnesota to Somalia, and according to reports, approximately 40% of households in Somalia get remittances from abroad. Thorpe and Rufo state that in 2023, the Somali diaspora sent $1.7 billion to the country, which is higher than the Somali government's budget that same year. Thorpe and Rufo discovered that the funds were being funneled to Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda-linked terror organization. Multiple law enforcement sources informed the duo that Minnesota's Somali community sent millions of dollars through a network of money traders known as hawalas that wound up in the hands of the terror group. Glenn Kearns, a retired Seattle Police Department detective who spent 14 years on a federal joint terrorism task force, told Thorpe and Rufo that the Somalis ran a complex money network and were routing cash on commercial flights from the Seattle airport to the Hawala networks in Somalia. Quote, "We had sources going into the Hawalas to send money. I went down to Minnesota and pulled all of their records, and well, shit, all these Somalis sending out money are on DHS benefits," Kearns told Thorpe and Rufo. A confidential source told Thorpe and Rufo that the largest funder of Al-Shabaab is the Minnesota taxpayer. Okay, so why am I reading this article right now? Like, what is the context here? So you remember the other day, I can probably pull that video up. And we should pull that video up. The video, remember when Trump was asked about Somalia, and he said, and he talked about, he's like, we don't want any of these people here. And again, this is, I think he's referring to what I'm about to get into here. So Al-Shabaab is an Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist organization designated by the DHS and DOJ and FBI, all the necessary authorities, right? They operate out of Somalia in Eastern Africa, and they're linked to Al-Qaeda. This is from, I think it was on Tuesday, Trump had a cabinet meeting, and he was asked about, immigration. And here's what he says. He's referring to the Somalians in Minnesota. Okay, so he's referring to the article basically referring to what we just read. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. I don't think I was playing the right tab. Let me just play it again. Sorry about that.
Somalians ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year, billions of dollars.
Just to be clear,
And they
some of you are saying it's frozen. Not frozen. I was playing the video, but I wasn't sharing the right tab. So that was just a production. I have to fire a producer. Just give me a minute. But yeah, we'll play it from the beginning one more time.
Malians ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year, billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Okay? Somebody say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country is no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries too. I can say it about other countries too. We don't want them to hell. We have to rebuild our country. You know, our country's at a tipping point. We can go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell and they complain and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Well, from the man himself, Sorry, I was making sure we had all the all the necessary videos for the ad break. We do have. Sorry, I'm not. We still haven't resolved whatever the StreamYard thing is, so I'm working off of a different StreamYard that doesn't have this stuff saved in. So I just have to make sure we have it all, and of course it's just not there. So anyway, let's go ahead and we'll do the ad break. When we come back, we'll wrap up this.
Soft disclosure, just dropped new favorites for the season. The lotion, your 5-ounce favorite, is still here. And now we've added full 11-ounce bottles. New lavender tea tree deodorant, clean, calm, and effective. New tallow bars, chamomile lemon rose and naked. Rich moisture that actually works. And on Black Friday, the new arrivals land. Introducing our first men's only formula, beard oil, in unscented and spiced vanilla. Truth, tamed, and finally your beard is too. Tallow lip balms, made with beef tallow and lanolin for serious moisture. Available in chamomile mint, vanilla, naked, and vanilla tangerine. Plus, mini tallow bars, same deep moisture as the full size. Available in vanilla coffee and naked. And finally, lavender vanilla lotion. Smooth, soothing, and worth the wait. On Black Friday, the new products arrive, and so do the Black Friday bundles. Visit softdisclosure.com for truth you can gift. Soft disclosure.
You wouldn't wait to buy fire insurance when your house is already on fire, right? So why wait to protect your money? I'm sure you are aware, but things are looking pretty dicey out there with the economy, global tensions, domestic tensions, AI, you name it. Are you surprised that gold just hit another record high and the price of silver is surging? Are people finally waking up to reality? This is why I've partnered with the award-winning company Goldco. They can help you safeguard your savings with precious metals, and they make the process incredibly easy. So if you're ready to help protect everything you've worked hard for, go to badlandsgold.com. You'll get Goldco's free 2025 gold and silver kit. And you could qualify for up to 10% and free bonus silver. It's seriously the best offer out there, hands down. Visit badlandsgold.com or click on the link in the video description. One more time, that's badlandsgold.com. Maha yourself with supplements that don't suck from Conscious Strength, founded by Badlands' very own Jordan Sather in 2019. Conscious Strength products are made in America and won't break your bank, unlike other online brands. Their lineup includes collagen for strengthening joints and hair, electrolytes to get rid of those cramps, greens powder that tastes good and mixes easy, Shilajit gummies, methylene blue, zeolite, and more. Flip the finger to pharma, be your own doctor, and get supplements that you can trust from Conscious Strength. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/strength to shop now. One more time, badlandsmedia.tv/strength, and the link will be in the description of the video below. To base Patrick Henry. All right, so let's finish up what we were talking about with Africa. So we got that report from Trump about the commentary from Trump about the Somalis, and the reason that that's relevant is because Al-Shabaab was just named as this, was just named and activated in Venezuela. Venezuela, I'm sorry. The DR Congo. Why is that not pulling up? Hold for processing. I'm sorry for this. Why is this tab not? Well, that's not promising, but it is what it is. Okay, well, we're probably gonna have to put a stake in. Probably just gonna have to put a stake in that one. But there is a story out there over this Al-Shabaab group from Somalia suddenly activated, operating in the North Kivu province of the DR Congo. So now you have another terrorist group. It's not M23. That's linked to Somalia. That I was trying to find the exact article so I could share it with y'all, but that's fine. It's worth noting that we got this story from few weeks ago. This is from November 19th. Russia backs the DR Congo peace deal. So Russia believes that Trump's peace deal for the DR Congo is the only way forward. It's the only viable path forward. That was Maria Zakharova. I think we talked about that on this show. And then there's this article. This is from late November as well. Apple sued over deceptive claims. And so a U.S.-based advocacy group is seeking a court order to bar the tech giant from misleading consumers over its DR Congo mineral supply chain. A U.S. human rights group has sued Apple in Washington, accusing the tech giant of falsely assuring consumers that minerals used in the devices are responsibly sourced from the Democratic Republic of the Congo and free of child labor. International rights advocates filed the case on Tuesday in the Superior Court of the District of Columbia under the city's Consumer Protection Procedures Act. In a press statement on Wednesday, IR advocates alleged that Apple's cobalt and tantalum supply chains remain tied to forced and child labor, environmental damage, corruption, and conflict in DR Congo and neighboring Rwanda, despite the company's claims about 100% recycled cobalt and rigorous traceability. Quote, we are bringing this lawsuit to hold Apple accountable for misleading the public and profiting from human rights abuses in its supply chain. According to the organization, Apple's cobalt suppliers include Anglo-Swiss multinational Glencore, there it is, which has pleaded guilty to bribery charges in the U.S. and faced a nearly $900 million tax penalty in the DR Congo. And that tax penalty is a direct result of the Dan Gertler lawsuit, okay? And the Dan Gertler lawsuit was litigated in a British court by, again, the Biden DOJ, the British DOJ, the equivalent of the DOJ, and then the Brazilian DOJ, the equivalent of the DOJ, and that would be Lula. So Lula, who I think might be our boy, working with Biden, went after Dan Gertler while Trump wasn't president. Yeah, so I think that this is all connected, and now you have a U.S.-based advocacy group going after it. So, all right, so let's now pivot to the other really, really big story. Well, I don't know if it's the other really big story, but it's a big story to me. Who knows if it's big to everyone else? But that would be, of course, the Putin and Modi broship that's happening right now. So Putin hopped on a plane, flew down to India, and India rolled out the red carpet for him, did the whole meeting with Modi. Let me see if I can pull up the Modi post, because Modi made a post about it. The headline that I'm sharing with you right now: Putin and Modi seal plans for Russia-India trade boost. And this is a state visit recap. The two leaders have signed a series of pacts with the aim of increasing bilateral trade to $100 billion by 2030. This is an article from today. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi have laid the groundwork for boosting the economic partnership between the traditional allies, with the country signing a series of pacts to raise bilateral trade to $100 billion by 2030. After summit-level talks on Friday, Russia and India signed a dozen memoranda spanning infrastructure, energy, pharma, and media sectors. Under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, India is pursuing an independent sovereign policy, and it attains great results in the economy, Putin said, adding that Russia is seeking multifaceted relations with India in various sectors. Quote, it is a matter of happiness that my acquaintance with you is more than 25 years old, Modi told Putin. The Indian leader added that the biggest strength between the two countries is mutual trust. It gives us wings to accomplish what we wish.
By standing together,
so let's
Russia and India, by standing shoulder.
Let's listen to this 40-second clip from Modi. I'm going to pull it up on X because the sound tends to come through better, I think, off of X.
By standing together, Russia and India, by standing shoulder to shoulder on this new journey to co-production, our roles are not limited to enhancing mutual trade. We want to ensure the well-being and welfare of the entire mankind. And to accomplish this, we need long-term solutions to the existing global problems and global challenges. India is willing to work next to Russia along this path. By standing together, Russia and India, by standing shoulder to shoulder on this new journey to co-production, our roles are not limited to enhancing mutual trade. We want to ensure the well-being and welfare of the entire mankind. And to accomplish this, we need long-term solutions to the existing global problems and global challenges.
I think that
India is willing
I think that's
to
replaying. Okay. So let me pull up the I'm going to pull up the Badlands news brief article that I wrote this morning, because I think that's actually a pretty good summary of what we're looking at. So you had a military defense. You had a number of things that happened. You had a number of military defense treaties that were signed, primarily aimed at getting the militaries of both India and Russia in the other country. So it's easier now for the Russian military to be on Indian soil and vice versa. And the purpose of that is to coordinate, to streamline the coordination of joint military exercises, number one. And number two is to better coordination for joint rescue operations. Like when somebody goes missing in the the Himalayas or the mountains between India and China and Russia, the Russian military will help the Indian military find them, that kind of thing. There also was a number of announcements. I think it was the Su-54. Is it the Su-54? Let's pull up my post. The Su-57, I think, is the new fighter. And so you have a 5th generation fighter that's like, I guess, on par or considered on par with the F-35. It's a 5th generation. And that is a collaboration that we're going to see Russia and India join in on. So India is going to get access to this program for Russia's new 5th generation fighter. They're also going to purchase the existing fighters, which I think are the Su-30. What is it? The Su-34. I think it's Su-57 is the new one, and maybe Su-34 is the existing one. Let's see. And did I click on the wrong news brief? The other announcement was about a tank deal. So India is buying a bunch of tanks from Russia. I think those are T-90s, if I'm not mistaken. And this is like so here's my write-up. So let's see. President Putin will head to India to meet with Prime Minister Modi. So we get the Su-57 5th generation fighter, which is this is like a replay of the Saudi visit to Trump, because we get like Saudi bought F-15s. That was the real, I think that was the real deal, was the F-15s. But they also are going to get the F-35. That's like the symbolic deal. So India is going to get, I think it's the Su-34s, but they're also going to get access to the Su-57, which is the the F-35 equivalent, I guess, Russian equivalent. They also are getting a bunch of tanks, which is what the Saudis got 300 tanks from Trump. India is now going to buy hundreds of tanks from Russia. So it's like the exact same deal in terms of the military equipment purchase on a smaller scale. The Saudi one is enormous. And then also was this development. This was announced 2 days ago on Wednesday. Russia and India to boost space cooperation. This is from Roscosmos, which is like their NASA agency. And it's the head of the Russian agency said that the two countries will start to collaborate on engine building and joint space flights. So they're going to work together to develop new space propulsion technology, as well as work together to send astronauts to space. And the reason that that's relevant to me is because back in Deadwood at GART, General Quast got up during DPH and he advised all of us to keep an eye on energy deals and space technology deals. He said those are going to be that's the signal. I mean, my takeaway from what he said was that's the signal for like golden age sovereign alliance deals. Were those kind of trade negotiations. And so this would be a really good example of that. It doesn't involve the United States, but it does involve a player that we haven't seen do a ton of things with the United States yet. India and Trump have been a little at odds with their tariff negotiation. I think India has a little bit of a deep state element that it has to deal with. They've been causing problems in Pakistan, but I think China and Russia are really helping with that. China and India resolving their differences, and then Putin, and making peace. And then Putin and India, as Modi said, they've always had a pretty good relationship. India is buying all of this oil from Russia that is sanctioned, and that has, the State Department all upset because they're getting it at a severe discount. They're getting really, really cheap oil from Russia. It's sanctioned Russian oil that nobody else can buy because they're not allowed to. But India's buying it, and they're buying it for very cheap. And it's helping the Indian economy. It's also helping the Russian economy. And then I wanted to pull up this is from DD Geopolitics, which is they're a good follow. It's like a geopolitics media outlet. And so Putin here announcing, but he's announcing the creation of RT India. So RT, I use RT all the time. I think it's a great media source. A lot of what RT puts out is just aggregated from the rest of the internet. They'll rewrite it. They'll rewrite the story as an RT story, but they'll source the original document. They also do their own analysis, their own reporting, whatever. They get a lot of direct information from the Kremlin. But they're now launching an India branch, and it says, I expect that RT India will not only help show Russia as it is today, but it also shed light on our problems of interaction. That's from Putin. He also said RT is being shut down in different countries, not because of malicious intent, but out of fear of the truth. And then he also says the goal is not just to promote Russia and its culture. RT is trying to convey truthful information about our country and what's happening in the world. And as somebody who's read RT for years now, I agree with him. I think RT, it's far better than any corporate, major corporate media outlet in America. That's for sure. Okay. And I'm just trying to make sure we don't have anything else on India, Russia. We do have the meme, but also the Modi. Here it is. Modi's post. So that's from Putin, and Modi's. So here we get a little bit of bromance. From the pageantry here, we get great pageantry from India.
राष्ट्रपति पुतिन का स्वागत करते हुए मुझे बहुत खुशी हो रही है। उनकी यात्रा ऐसे समय हो रही है जब हमारे द्विपक्षीय संबंध कई ऐतिहासिक माइलस्टोन के दौर से गुजर रहे हैं। पिछले 8 दशकों में विश्व में अनेक उतार चढ़ाव आए, मानवता को अनेक चुनौतियों और संकटों से गुजरना पड़ा, और इन सब के बीच भी भारत रूस मित्र एक ध्रुव तारे की तरफ बनी रही। मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि आने वाले समय हमारी मित्रता हमें ग्लोबल चैलेंजेस का सामना करने की शक्ति देगी, और यही भरोसा हमारे साझा भविष्य को और समृद्ध करेगा।
Yeah, we can't understand what you're saying, Modi, but appreciate you anyway. So he says today's 23rd India-Russia annual summit gave us the opportunity to comprehensively discuss various aspects of India-Russia cooperation. We agreed on the economic cooperation program until 2030 with the aim of diversifying our trade and investment ties. We talked about improving ties and strengthening relations in such areas as shipbuilding, capacity development, energy, critical minerals, and much more. So we got some pictures. And the one picture that I really wanted to look at and laugh at was, I always look for whenever we are, whenever we get one of these sovereign alliance posts. Okay, so then he says, during the negotiations with President Putin, the significant attention was also devoted to global issues. I once again reaffirmed India's commitment to peace and the pursuit of a peaceful and long-term resolution to the conflict in Ukraine. We emphasized the importance of jointly combating the threat of terrorism. We also agreed to continue close cooperation on various multilateral platforms. Our cultural ties and people-to-people contacts are a key element of Indo-Russian friendship, which has been further strengthened by the recent opening of 2 new Indian consulates in Russia and the arrival in Russia of sacred Buddhist relics. There is also enormous potential in areas such as education, vocational training, and learning. And, the significance of a lot of this is, I think, like, you're seeing all these different countries when they host these big get-togethers, is they're flexing their culture. We're not seeing a merger, like a melting pot of cultures, which is what Maria Corina Machado and the globalists all want. They want it so that you go to Venezuela and you feel like you're in St. Louis, so that you go to Moscow and you feel like you're in California. Like, that's what the globalists want. They want you to go anywhere you go in the world, it feels like the place you came from. And that's boring and it's bullshit. It's very satanic. We're not doing that. We're doing, everybody gets to express their own culture and be proud of it. And anyone who tells us we're not allowed to, right here, like that's our formal response to you when you say that, we're not allowed to have American culture. We're not allowed to be proud of our forefathers or our parents or any of that. Our answer to you is sit on this and twirl. Like, we don't care. You are no longer relevant. You're no longer in charge. I was really looking for the picture of the cars because Putin and Modi did the car thing. This happens every single time that they get together. Look right here. Here it is. PM Modi and President Putin break protocol and ride together in the same car, because normally they ride, the dignitaries get in their own car. Modi has his car, Putin gets in his car, they drive to the meeting, and instead that's a Modi thing. But then there was a picture that was going everywhere. Here it is. This picture. This is like, we've seen MBS and Putin do this. We've seen Putin and Kim Jong-un do this. We've seen, I think Putin and Xi did it. We're going to get a Putin-Trump one. Like, we're going to see Putin and Trump sit in the beast just like this and take this picture. And when that happens, you're going to know that this is the Sovereign Alliance roster is complete. But this is this is what makes it a Sovereign Alliance proof, is this picture. Without this picture, did the summit even happen? I don't know. Okay, so from there, let's do a few more Russia stories. All right, so the U.S. puts normalizing relations with Russia among core interests. The new national security strategy calls for a swift end to the Ukraine conflict and preventing further escalation into Europe. The U.S. has placed the restoration of normal ties with Russia and a rapid end to the Ukraine conflict at the center of its newly released national security strategy, presenting both aims as among America's core interests. The 33-page report outlining President Trump's foreign policy vision was released by the White House on Friday. It is a core interest of the United States to negotiate an expeditious cessation of hostilities in Ukraine. The paper states, in order to stabilize European economies, prevent unintended escalation or expansion of the war, and reestablish strategic stability with Russia. It notes that the Ukraine conflict has left European relations with Russia deeply attenuated, destabilizing the region. The report criticizes European leaders for unrealistic expectations regarding the outcome of the conflict, arguing that a large European majority wants peace, yet that desire is not translated into policy. America, it says, is ready for significant diplomatic engagement to help Europe correct its current trajectory, reestablish stability, and mitigate the risk of conflict between Russia and European states. In contrast with the U.S. national strategy during Trump's first term, which emphasized competition with Russia and China, the new strategy shifts the focus to the Western Hemisphere into protecting the homeland, the borders, and regional interests. It calls for resources to be redirected from distant theaters to challenges closer to home and urges NATO and European states to shoulder primary responsibility for their own defense. The document also calls for an end to NATO expansion, a demand that Russia has repeatedly made, calling it a root cause of the Ukraine conflict, which Moscow views as a Western proxy war. Overall, the new strategy signals a shift away from global interventionism toward a more transactional foreign policy, arguing that the U.S. should act abroad only when its interests are directly at stake. The strategy is the first of several major defense and foreign policy documents the Trump administration is expected to release. These include an updated national defense strategy, the Missile Defense Review, and Nuclear Posture Review, which are expected to echo these strategies' direction. I'm looking forward to digging into this. I'm going to dig into this report, of course, and maybe on Tuesday we'll unpack it further. It is 32 pages, so I'm not going to try to dig through it here live on air. Look at this. Here's another. Russia's largest bank to triple operations in India. The South Asian country will be one of the top global markets for the next 20 years. Sabir chief Herman Gref. Wow. Okay. Well, Herman Gref was one of the guys that I was looking at when I did this is why all the different shows are important, because I know who Herman Gref is, because he was one of the guys who backed Medvedev when Medvedev was president in 2008. Herman Gref was one of the technocrats that was like part of that, right? And now he's been the head of this Sabir bank. It's a bank in Russia that's been sanctioned by the US and Europe and all that. But this is interesting. So now, like, Russia is now going to try to create opportunity for these countries that are kind of getting the shaft from the Western banking system. This is really, really interesting. Let's see if this is in English. No, it's in Russian. That's all right. Yeah, so that is interesting because we also saw Russia is offering money to Venezuela as well now too. They're like, hey, these guys aren't going to bankroll you. Like the West isn't going to bankroll you, and you don't want the IMF in there, and you don't want the World Bank in there. So why don't we just offer you some money? If you need money, like we can do that. And I think we're going to start seeing that all over the place, like the BRICS Development Bank and all like those different plans. All these sovereign wealth funds trying to invest in these different countries and diversify their portfolios. Yeah, I think this is pretty interesting. So yeah, Russia's largest bank to triple operations in India. Okay. So we can kind of pivot to Ukraine because that last article mentioned the Russia peace initiative. And I think, by the way, we're going to see something happen with Russia and Ukraine this month. I think by Christmas, we're going to see something significant happen. And if this 33-page document is as big of a deal as it sounds like it is, that would explain why the deep state is freaking the hell out right now and why all of their assets have become even more insufferable than they normally are. Laura Loomer, I'm looking at you, Laura Loomer, because you have become incredibly insufferable, even more so than you normally are. And Levin too. And the X algorithm just won't remove them from my field of vision. It says right here, Zelensky doing the bidding of extremists. According to Putin, the Ukrainian leader was elected on promises of peace, but ended up serving the agenda of radical nationalists, the Russian leader has said. Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky broke his campaign promises to reach peace and instead pursued the agenda of radical nationalists, Russian President Vladimir Putin has said. In an interview with India Today, released on Thursday, Putin said that when Zelensky came to power, he pledged to seek peace and end the hostilities in Donbass, then part of Ukraine at any cost, including his own career. But now everything looks completely different. Quote, like his predecessors, he started to heed not the interests of the people, but the interests of a narrow group of nationalists, radically minded nationalists. In essence, he is doing their bidding. Putin described the authorities in Kiev as very similar to a neo-Nazi regime, arguing what he called an extreme form of nationalism is almost the same as neo-Nazism. And as a result, he added that the leadership in Kiev is seeking to impose its terms on the battlefield, something Putin said Ukraine is not particularly successful at. Ukraine, the Russian president said, should understand that the best way to end the conflict remains a peaceful settlement on terms that Russia tried to negotiate in 2022, referring to demands that Kiev should stay out of NATO and commit to denazifying and denazification and demilitarization. And then it just goes on to explain the background of how Putin or how Zelensky was elected and his campaign promises. Yeah, and then you couple that commentary with Trump's commentary, or I'm sorry, the language that it sounds like is in this 33-page report, and Putin and Trump are like doing the pincer move right now against Europe, against the West, and against the State Department, frankly. Okay, and then here is another article from I'm backtracking a little bit from November 25th, because this will kind of lead into what Putin is talking about there with the denazification. And I see a lot of parallels now between Zelensky and Netanyahu, because Netanyahu is kind of he's kind of led the nationalists in Israel right off the edge of the cliff and into the ravine. And I don't know if there's going to be any backing out of it for them. It says Ukrainian neo-Nazi fighter admits frontline situation is critical. Russian forces are advancing rapidly across the entire front. Maxim Zorin has warned Ukrainian troops are not just losing settlements, but entire sectors along the front line to rapidly advancing Russian troops. The former commander of the neo-Nazi Azov brigade has warned, according to Maxim Zorin, the battlefield situation for Ukraine is only getting worse. Quote, in some areas, the absence of urgent decisions, the situation is becoming critical. In fact, I don't remember such a rapid enemy advance for a long time, he wrote on Telegram on Monday. The issue now is not of the loss of certain settlements, but in general, a significant improvement in the enemy's operational position in entire sectors, the former Azov commander said. The neo-Nazi unit, which has been designated as terrorist in Russia, was reformed into the Ukrainian 3rd Assault Brigade following their rout in Mariupol in 2022. Russian forces have sped up their advance in recent months, liberating more than 24 settlements in the last 2 weeks, including strategic logistics hub of Kapyansk in the Kharkov region. Ukrainian battlefield losses have been compounded by troop shortages and a record number of desertions. That is also a problem they're experiencing in Israel, by the way. We talked about the other day about how all these women are now serving in combat roles because, the 100,000 Haredim, the Orthodox men who are all military age, refuse to fight. That's an interesting dynamic too. Okay. And so this story from last week feeds into this story. Here it is. Zelensky, this is from 2 days ago. Zelensky's ex-spokeswoman admits fearing for her life because of Yermak. Yulia Mindel says she is afraid of Zelensky's former chief of staff, who she describes as dangerous. Vladimir Zelensky's former spokeswoman turned critic, Yulia Mindel, has said she fears for her life because of Andrei Yermak, the Ukrainian leader's powerful longtime aide and right-hand man, who was recently forced to resign amid a major corruption scandal. Yermak, who served as head of the office of the president from 2020, stepped down last week over alleged links to a recently uncovered $100 million money laundering scheme. He formerly left his post after Western-backed anti-corruption agencies raided his residence as part of a sweeping probe known as Operation Midas. He has denied any wrongdoing. Mindell suggested that Yermak may still retain influence due to his network of loyal officials. He will, quote, do absolutely everything, end quote, to keep shaping policy behind the scenes or to return to power, she told Ukrainian media on Tuesday. Mindell, who resigned in 2021, described Yermak as a very dangerous person. She stated that even criticizing the former chief of staff frightens her and that she prays daily and thanks God for being alive. She claimed that Yermak used smear campaigns, political attacks, and his influence over law enforcement to target people who oppose him, branding critics pro-Russian or traitors. Criminal cases are created out of thin air against those he views as a threat. Who does that sound like, by the way? It sounds like the Uniparty, right? Anyone who doesn't like fall in line with the official narrative is pro-Russian. They're traitors. They're pro-Putin. You heard the Republican Party say this. By the way, Lindsey Graham thinks that this guy is like one of the greatest and most courageous people in the world right now. Like Lindsey Graham has feelings for this guy that, you know, we'll just leave it at that. And I'm just saying that he has very strong perverse feelings for this man, I suspect, based on the way he talks about Zelensky and the people around Zelensky. There is like a deep affection that between Lindsey Graham, Andrei Yermak, and all the people in Yermak's orbit. And, you know, I'm not saying that Lindsey Graham is a homosexual, but he certainly acts like a homosexual and comes off as a homosexual. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he had homosexual relationships with some of these foreign leaders, such as Andrei Yermak. I don't know if Andrei Yermak's a homosexual, but I know they do a lot of weird stuff in Ukraine and Israel. And they don't think it's strange for a group of men to gang rape a male prisoner. In fact, the Israeli government, I think, legalized that last year after they were exposed for doing that in the IDF. It's just boys being boys, you know? So Lindsey Graham, I think, would find good friends in that corner of the world. And it's no wonder that he is such an ardent Zionist, because Zionism, of course, is a ideology, a pro-gay ideology, pro-LGBTQ ideology. But the Republican Party doesn't want to talk about that because the Republican Party is, of course, also pro-LGBTQ. They love the trans movement. That's why the Daily Weimar talks about it like every single day, nonstop. Anyway, I digress. So it says, let's see. According to Mindell, many officials have faced pressure, dismissal, or reputational damage as a result of Yermak's actions, and described numerous cases in which human destinies were destroyed by Yermak. She also claimed Yermak had built his own power structure inside the government, placing loyal figures in key state positions while he himself became a central filter for decisions, maintaining control over appointments, negotiations, and access to Zelensky. Ukrainian media have reported that after being sacked, Yermak lashed out at Zelensky and accused him of betrayal. Moscow has argued that the latest corruption scandal points to a deeper crisis in Kiev. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov suggested it would have extremely negative repercussions for Ukraine's political stability, while President Vladimir Putin has said the case proves that Kiev has devolved into a criminal gang that holds power for personal enrichment. And here's the story from earlier this week, I think this last weekend, about Yermak. I don't remember if we mentioned this on Saturday, but it says Zelensky's top aide erupted in anger over sacking former chief of staff Andrei Yermak. Reportedly lashed out at his friend and boss as he exited the government amid a corruption scandal. According to Ukrainskaya Pravda, that's a newspaper, I think, Yermak responded to the demand for his resignation with a half-hour tantrum in which he allegedly hurled insults, reproaches, and accusations as Zelensky's sources described the exchange as a terrible breakup, adding that Yermak was particularly enraged by Zelensky's abandonment. The outlet also reported that senior Ukrainian officials had coordinated their efforts to remove Yermak in a private chat, which is said to have included Parliamentary Speaker Ruslan Stefanchuk, Defense Minister Denis Shmyhal, and Vice Prime Minister Mikhail Fedorov. According to the newspaper, the decision to dismiss Yermak had been reached weeks before the raid. Yeah, and the other thing that happened that we definitely didn't talk about on Tuesday was this, which is Yermak. I wonder if the video of Yermak being told in the middle of a video interview that Trump had rejected his amendments to the peace plan. Let me see if I can find that. Reacts, Trump rejects. Let me see if that gets it. Maybe not, but God, that was a great video of him. He was talking about, oh yeah, well we have proposed amendments to this 28-point peace plan that are now being reviewed. They've been submitted by Marco Rubio. They're being reviewed, and the reporter was like, oh yeah, Trump just came out and said he's rejecting all of that. He said that in a Truth Social post, and Yermak's like face just totally drops to, are you serious? Like just total defeat. And yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Okay. So yeah, Ukraine's corrupt. The corruption ties to Israel. The corruption ties to the EU, and it certainly ties to DC. Lindsey Graham and all of his little boyfriends around the world in Israel and Ukraine are all freaking out right now because their little organized crime syndicate is falling apart. And as the crime syndicate is falling apart, you have EU leaders fear U.S. betrayal on Ukraine peace talks. The Ukraine peace process poses a great danger to Vladimir Zelensky. A number of EU leaders have claimed, according to Der Spiegel, EU leaders harbor profound distrust of Washington's attempt to help end the Ukraine conflict. Der Spiegel reported on Thursday, citing a transcript of their recent phone call that it obtained on Monday. French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz held a phone call with Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky and several other European leaders, including Finnish President Alexander Stubb and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. The call came just a day before U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, visited Moscow for talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. There is a possibility that the U.S. will betray Ukraine on the issue of territory without clarity regarding security guarantees. Macron reportedly said during the call, the issue of territories remains one of the most sensitive in the negotiations. The original U.S. drafted peace plan reportedly required Ukraine to cede parts of Donbass it still controls, among other things. The EU outright rejected this condition, insisting that Kiev should not give up any territories. Macron also stated that peaceful peace talks could pose a great danger for Zelensky personally. An assessment shared by Merz, Stubb, and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who was also part of the conversation, according to Der Spiegel. And what's funny is that, I think the 28-point peace plan was presented like 2 weeks ago, and we just read an article that in the past 2 weeks, Russia is now suddenly advancing like very quickly. So yeah, every day that you drag your feet and getting peace, you lose more and more. Ukraine just becomes a little smaller, a little smaller, a little smaller, a little smaller. And eventually maybe Ukraine just won't exist anymore. And that sounds pretty great to me. Sounds like it probably would be the best path towards peace, because that's how you're gonna prevent guys like Andrei Yermak from getting his fingers into the cookie jar. Now, the meeting that was on Tuesday, I think it was, that was between Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, Vladimir Putin, and Kirill Dmitriev. I think we talked about that on Tuesday, but the signal to that, the signal there is that Dmitriev, the fact that it's a meeting between Dmitriev and Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner tells you that that meeting is not to resolve a military conflict. That meeting is to negotiate economic deals, which is, of course, only happens after you have negotiated an end to a military conflict. So I think the military conflict has already been resolved. I think Trump and Putin are on the same page. It's my guess. I think that deal's locked in and done. Probably gets announced before Christmas. I'm just speculating, guessing. But on the heels of that, I bet you as that deal is announced, we're probably going to get major economic trade, bilateral trade deals announced with Russia. And that's going to cause Lindsey Graham to freak the hell out. Like Lindsey Graham is going to really panic here. Okay, so we're getting here at the end of the show. I think it's time to wind this thing down, but I got a few more that I want to share. We mentioned Dmitry Peskov, or not Dmitry Peskov, Kirill Dmitriev and Wickoff meeting with Putin, and here's a picture of that. Here's a picture of them walking down the street with Kirill Dmitriev in Moscow. By the way, Moscow looks amazing. Look at this like Christmas market in the background. Show me an American city, a major American city where you have that. You're not going to find that in New York City. You're not going to find that in LA. You're not going to find that in Chicago. But you're going to find it in Moscow because Moscow, Russia is a Christian nation. Imagine that. And that is why, by the way, the U.S. government hates Russia so much, because the U.S. government worships Satan, as does the Israeli government, as the Ukrainian government. I mean, it is what it is. So here is Kirill Dmitriev from today. You are not even in the game. Russian negotiator to Merz. Kirill Dmitriev has accused the German leader of sabotaging the Ukraine settlement process with his warmongering. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has made himself irrelevant to Ukraine peace negotiations after attempting to sabotage the talks with warmongering. Senior Russian negotiator Kirill Dmitriev has said Dmitriev was responding to Merz's alleged remarks about U.S. efforts to settle the conflict, reportedly made during a call with European peers and Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky earlier this week. According to a transcript leaked by Der Spiegel, Merz warned Zelensky to be careful because U.S. negotiators are playing games with him and his European backers. The outlet said Merz was referring to U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, who visited Moscow earlier this week to discuss Washington's peace roadmap. Quote, Merz accuses the Americans of playing games, Dmitriev wrote on X on Friday. Dear Merz, you are not even in the game. You disqualified yourself by warmongering, peace sabotage, unrealistic proposals, stubborn stupidity. Dmitriev added that instead of inserting himself into the peace process, Merz should work on the domestic issues he ignores, noting that the chancellor's approval rating has been falling. European leaders have been scrambling for a seat at the negotiating table after being blindsided by the U.S. drafting a peace plan without their involvement, which, according to the media leaks, favors Moscow in the eyes of Kiev's backers. Over the past few days, they reportedly tried to pressure Washington to revise key points. The leaked German call appeared to confirm that the EU leaders feel sidelined. Finnish President Alexander Stubb reportedly said, "We're out, but we have to get in." Yeah, so the answer is simple. You're not going to be involved. We are going to betray you because you are the bad guy. And because you're the bad guy, you have to be destroyed. And by the way, when I say you are the bad guy, I'm not referring just to Merz or the German government or the EU or Macron. I'm referring to the Republican Party. I'm referring to the State Department. I'm referring to pretty much the entire U.S. federal apparatus, because I think all of it is poisoned. I don't think you can extract the poison out of it and salvage the patient. Maybe some of these institutions are worthy of an existence, but they can't exist in their current form. Even the ones that should exist need to be torn down, the earth salted, and then rebuilt, and I'm saying metaphorically, rebuilt at a new site. Like, we need a fully new agency that performs the duties of whatever agency is worthy of existing. And by the way, all of those points should be discussed thoroughly discussed by the American people. We should be having a conversation about which parts of the federal apparatus are even worth preserving, because I'm not sure there's very many of them. I think you get the U.S. military, a diplomatic agency. I don't want to say the State Department, because I think the State Department is beyond saving. I don't think it's salvageable. I think you need to have a new diplomatic mission. But then, I guess the Treasury, maybe, I mean, do you need a federal law enforcement agency? I don't even know if you do. I wonder if state law enforcement can handle everything. And you basically just have like a border patrol that protects the borders, like that kind of thing. And maybe border patrol is responsible for hunting down any operatives that are inside the country who shouldn't be there. Like that should be a border patrol thing. I don't know. So like, we'll see, but this is something that we should be talking about as a country, as a community, and not just left to, Lindsey Graham to figure out for us. I think one or two more stories. We have, I think that one we've already done, but this one, U.S. warns Europe of civilizational erasure. The continent is plagued with immigration problems and censorship, according to U.S. President's new national security strategy. So I'm not going to read through this article because we're going to cover this on Tuesday once I have a chance to read the 33-page document. But yeah, I mean, like, I agree with him. It's like, Europe, you should really be focusing on like self-preservation and not trying to fix other people's problems, like Ukraine. You have your own problems to worry about. And if you're lucky, if you're nice to us, the United States maybe will make sure that you don't become a third world country yourself. But on your current trajectory, that's going to happen. Like, no question that's going to happen. Now, I thought this was really interesting. Here, this is just a post I saw from RT, but Brazil's ex-president Bolsonaro supports his son, Senator Flavio Bolsonaro, as a presidential candidate in the 2026 election, according to Reuters. Bolsonaro, who is serving a 27-year prison term, chose his son over another top contender, Sao Paulo Governor Tarcísio de Freitas. Okay, there's a whole history here that we're going to go through, maybe on the Book of Trump. Maybe we'll do it on this show. I don't know. But, Bolsonaro and his son released Lula from prison in 2019, even though Lula was serving out a treason sentence for allegedly rigging elections, and then he wasn't even supposed to be allowed to run for office again. He runs anyway. He becomes president. I think Lula is like Joe Biden, the Brazilian Joe Biden, and I think Lula is our boy Lula. I think strings are being pulled behind the scenes. I think he was unleashed onto Brazil for all the right reasons, the same way Joe Biden was unleashed onto America for all the right reasons. The net effect of Joe Biden's presidency is the absolute destruction of the Democrat brand. The Democrats will never again, ever have national support in this country ever again. And now it's the Republicans' turn. Now you're seeing the Republican Party, their brand being destroyed, which is fantastic, which is a neocon, the neocon warmongering branch of their party. So we didn't get to Venezuela today, but I would highly encourage everybody to go listen to tonight at 7:30 Eastern. Ash and CanCon are interviewing Patrick Byrne on the whole like Smartmatic Venezuela situation. And I'm going to be tuning in. That's going to be appointment television. Everyone should go watch that. There's a lot to that story that we haven't even talked about on this show that I was talking to Ash and CanCon about before. And we've that's the geopolitical stuff. There's also election integrity stuff that I don't even go into because it's not my line of country. I leave that to Ash and CanCon and John. But man, it is a pretty incredible story of what's happening there with Colombia and Venezuela. So maybe we'll go back to Latin America on Tuesday. All right, so let's hit some rants and maybe some boosts, and then we will get out of here. How's the chat doing? I haven't really checked in on y'all to make sure y'all are still alive, which is my fault. You have to make sure to go home and put some water in the chat's bowl, otherwise they'll die of dehydration. Miller Biz, $2. Jaden's back. Hail to the Redskins. Is Jaden back? Is Jaden playing on Sunday? I don't know. I mean, the season's over. Like nothing can change that. Nothing can stop what is coming, which is the Redskins not making the playoffs. But I would shut Jaden Daniels down for the season. I don't know why you would keep him, let him go back out there. I mean, after his arm bent the wrong way, for those who aren't read in on the sports ball. This star quarterback of the Redskins pulled an RG3, got tackled by a fat guy, and his arm went the wrong way on national television in prime time. It was not pretty. It was bad. It was really bad. So, but he seems like a good guy. Like seems like a good kid. So, you know, ardent Christian. Gotta love that. RG3 was too. But anyway, so let's see the boosts. Oh, FIFA. Pack Rat 777. Yeah, we are gonna hit that real quick. I did have that queued up actually. Thank you for the reminder, Pack Rat. Yeah, so right now they're doing the drawing. They're doing like the drawings for the FIFA World Cup match. For those who aren't aware, we America are hosting the World Cup next year, 2026. And so they're drawing like who's going to play who. Right now that's happening. It's like a big, public event. Trump is there. And I have a few videos of Trump from that event. And I have so many tabs open at this point that I just have to open up a new X tab and just find it again because it's just one of those days. Okay. So here's the White House just put this out.
Association awards the 2025 FIFA Peace Prize, Football Unites the World, to Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, in recognition of his exceptional and extraordinary actions to promote peace and unity around the world. Friday, December 5th, 2025. This is the certificate. It's yours.
Thank you very much. This is truly one of the great honors of my life. And beyond awards, John and I were discussing this. We saved millions and millions of lives.
FIFA.
See, this is really interesting to me. I mean, it's FIFA. So like people are gonna say, well, it's sports. Like, why does this matter? There is something that's happening here. I don't know. I don't know if this was last night or if this is happening today. But here's this seems like this is like a nighttime event. Here's the village people performing, and here is not only Trump but Melania doing the Trump dance. Look at this. Melania's in I don't know who that is. Is that Wickoff? That's not Trump. I thought that was Melania. So that's not Melania. But what's interesting is that Giuliani, the FIFA guy, he's been in the White House a bunch this year. Like I've seen him coming and going from the White House. He was there a few weeks ago. That was when Trump was asked about, are you going to sell the F-35s to Saudi Arabia? And Trump said, you know what? I am going to sell them the F-35s. That was Giuliani was standing behind him because they were talking about the World Cup. The World Cup in 2022, they have the World Cup every 4 years. In 2022, it was in Qatar. A number of Trump officials were working on behalf of the Qatari government to orchestrate that whole situation. One of the lawyers who was a key lawyer in the Qatar World Cup situation was Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi was involved in that. There are a number of other people who were involved in it. Qatar has obviously become a very important ally for us. Also a central player in the world peace effort. And I remember during the first Trump administration, the Qataris were getting hammered because they were building this giant soccer stadium in Qatar for the World Cup. And they were basically being accused of importing slave labor, indentured servitude. The things that were being said about them in the media were that they would offer, they had public posting, jobs for people to come from out of the country to work there, which is very common in Arabia because, you don't have the skilled labor. So you have to import the skilled labor from all over the world. And basically once the people come, you then jack up the cost of living and all of a sudden they're in debt upside down and they can't work it off. And then now they're indentured servants forever. That's an old model that's been used, back in the 1600s, they were using that against the Irish and the poor English people in America. That's what the oligarchs were doing. In hindsight, I don't know if any of that was even true. Like the way the media behaves and acts, if the media is attacking you, I can't imagine it's because you're actually evil. I imagine it's because you are not going along with their official narrative. And so when the media is going so hard against Qatar, putting that narrative out there, I don't know in hindsight if it's true, but the fact that Trump just said that they saved millions and millions of lives through FIFA, I wonder what role FIFA maybe played in these memes are retarded, like in all of this. And then they created this peace prize. They've never done this before, and the first one they're giving to Trump. Something is going on here at FIFA. I don't know what it is, but you got to remember FIFA is like widely regarded, has long been widely regarded as one of the most corrupt international organizations out there. All of these FIFA officials over the years have been arrested for corruption, embezzlement, all that kind of stuff. So it has its tentacles and everything, and it's it's obviously a major money generator, just like the NFL. But soccer, everyone plays soccer, so it's everywhere. So even in like really poor countries, they play soccer. So there's lots of money in it, and there's also opportunity for people from these poor countries to get involved in FIFA and scrape a little off the top. So I don't know. Like we'll have to see what happens with FIFA, but very interesting. Very interesting situation with Trump and FIFA. And then I lied. There is actually one other thing that I wanted. Now that I'm thinking about it. Let's go back to the RT X account because we have more videos of Nicolas Maduro just like not at all acting like a dictator from yeah. And so here's RT. It's like dance battle of the century, Maduro or Trump. And so here's Maduro. They published this today. This is ridiculous. Look at this.
Please. Yes, please. Listen to me. Yes, please.
I mean, is this even real life right now? How is this guy? This is a ruthless dictator that is controlling American elections and the southern border. This is like a clown show. It's very serious, though. I mean, I think it's a brilliant plan because you're just undermining the legitimacy of the CIA's argument that this guy is actually like what they say he is. I don't believe it at all. Yeah. So anyway, all right. So let's hit some boosts, and then we'll get out of here. You can go to badlandsmedia.tv. If you're listening to this on replay, go to badlandsmedia.tv/boost. And you can do like a Rumble rant at any time, and we will read it on air. Brogent from November 25th. I don't know if we read this on Tuesday, but I'll go ahead and read it again. $10 Ghost. Did you know Hillary was heavily involved in this with the State Department promotion of Skolkovo? Oh, we did read this, and yes, I did say I was going to look into that. I haven't looked into it yet, but I will. That's an interesting note. And it wouldn't, again, like all this stuff, these people are all, the deep state's always connected in these like big development deals because there's lots of opportunity for grift and graft and money laundering with large construction projects. It's one of the reasons that the mob is involved in that stuff. Cement companies, you can dispose of bodies and when you're pouring the footers for large buildings. So anyway, I think that's the only boost we have. All right, guys, hit the thumbs up, and we will see y'all on Tuesday. Y'all have a good weekend. 7:30. Why We Vote. Listen to the Burn interview, and y'all have a good weekend. And man, I waited a little too long to hit the music because it takes a few minutes for it to get rolling.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.